The desert wind blowing in my hair. I'm calling it Lusail. France against Argentina, of course, is the clash. We were all very much enamoured of the various rebel narratives of your Croatias and Moroccos, etc. But this is a proper blue-blooded final, would you say, John?
I think so, yeah. It's a really tough one to call, I think, from a tactical point of view as well, because both of these teams, I think, have been quite passive in the way that they've approached games until maybe Argentina in the last game. I thought they were quite aggressive against Croatia. But the big question is going to be how does each of those teams respond to the other team? I think both of the teams were lower on possession than their opponents in the semi-finals. So this is going to be a situation where that can't happen. They can't both have less possession than their opponents. So.
Right. Although with FIFA's new possession stats, they could both.
That is true. They could have contested possession.
Yeah, that's the real winner. Yeah. I was a bit surprised when I read that stat because both semi-finals supposedly featured a dominant favourite against the defensive team, and I expected the dominant side to be the one with all the possession, but neither France nor Argentina broke the 40% mark. Why is that, JJ?
In the last games, you mean?
Yeah, in the semi-finals.
Well, I think the approach both of these managers have, or the teams have, I think, is that they wait for the opposition to make the mistake that they can then exploit, as opposed to trying to take the game to them and be at risk of making the mistake that you lose from. So they're quite cautious. Like France have amazing players, but amazing players can often be caught on the counter-attack because they try things that unlock a team to try and score. So often they don't need to have all the possession because they can be patient, they can wait for their team to go back a bit. Like you see with France, they don't really press very high. They're quite passive in the first line and let the other team come into their half a little bit, because then it opens up more space, and then suddenly you've got Mbappe can get in behind, or Griezmann can get in behind, and that's what they kind of do. Like Morocco, for example, they've had 31.6% possession, I think it was at some point. I'm almost exactly right, I think. And you know exactly how they're going to play, and so they changed their system a little bit. Sure enough, they went to a back five, and it had repercussions. But the goal that France scored was them not trying to press them high up; they're trying to let them play a little bit. And Morocco are trying to have a deep line, but Griezmann makes a darting run backwards to pull someone out of position. That's how they get in behind with a little tiny bit of space in behind that line, and that's the kind of thing they want to try and do. So I think it's on purpose they're doing it.
Who do you have as favourites here, Sasha?
So I think this one's difficult because I get the point about maybe both teams not necessarily wanting the ball that much, but I think what we saw against throughout the tournament is in the previous World Cup, France had the midfielder who was doing the job of two midfielders, Kante.
Yeah.
This World Cup, arguably an even greater performance from Griezmann, because you can see second half against Morocco, he was effectively trying to screen his back line. First half, obviously, he creates the goal. And I think the goal isn't just the darting run. He's ghosting. He's like loitering around that defender for a good few seconds, going back and forth until he loses him. And that's why he loses balance. I think this is one of the reasons, say, why those Croatian defenders are falling over when Alvarez is running at them, because they're disorientated. And I think, this happens to the best of them. So I think it's interesting. I think Griezmann could be again the key here. But of course, both teams have a player who doesn't really defend, Mbappe and Messi. So is it going to be 10v10? Like, which one of them would leave the bigger hole, I think, is a question for me.
Yeah, there's even Griezmann, before he gets that little drop, he tries to make a dart and run in behind. That's one of the things he does before that. And I'm thinking, I've done a preview of this tactically on Tifo IRL, which you can watch on YouTube if you wanted to. And I think the game will be very cagey, because both teams, it's not that they don't want the ball, but that they just don't want to go forward too much with it and leave too many players forward. They want to attack with everyone and have a big amount of space. And you will get... The game will be decided probably by the likes of Messi and Mbappe. It's a very obvious thing to say. But Argentina have, for example, Rodrigo de Paul, who is like not a bodyguard for Messi, but he helps them out a lot by doing a lot of the defensive work that Messi doesn't. So although he's not fantastic on the ball, I'd say, he does an awful lot of stuff off the ball that you definitely notice him do that helps back up the things that Messi's doing, because then you can let Messi keep his energy to make those explosive runs like when he turned Guardiola inside out against Croatia. That's what you want. And whereas Mbappe has Hernandez overlapping him and then just a bit of solidity behind him, really. And also Koundé, although he's a right back technically, kind of tucks in a little bit more. So you have a lot of defensive solidity from a bit of a back three, with Hernandez not too far away from Mbappe, but he does do his magic. But Mbappe tends to do all the things that are risky at losing the ball when there's space in behind for him to get into, or he creates space by just running through people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot, John. JJ, sorry. You were mentioning, the 2018 clash, and I think we've all been kind of looking back on that and salivating about over the quality of the goals in there. Do you anticipate it being a similarly goal-tastic affair, John?
No, I don't think so, because as Sasha was saying, the big question that both of these teams are sort of trying to answer is how do you play with effectively a player down out of possession, which is, I think, why both teams have been fairly passive in their game so far. I think Griezmann is a really important player for France because he allows France to be able to mitigate the problems that Mbappe offers. And I think previously what has happened is Mbappe just doesn't drop back in the wide areas. He plays on the left-hand side, so usually you have a space to exploit on the left. Well, what they've been doing this tournament is they've been pushing Mbappe just across alongside Giroud and saying, okay, you go in the front line of the press. And Griezmann will drop deep and will give just an extra body in the midfield so that Rabiot and Tchouaméni can move across towards the left. And so they're forming a 4-4-2 mid-block, which a lot of teams will do, but they're doing it in quite a different way just to mitigate the problems. And yeah, as JJ says, Argentina are doing a similar thing there. Now, I think with Messi, what they've been doing more is just sort of allowing him to do what he does, but having Julian Alvarez as the attacking player alongside him. He's been doing a huge amount of defensive work as well, and I think that makes a big difference for them too. So both of these teams, as Sasha's saying, they're playing like 10v10 almost. So I think the natural inclination of those teams then is to be a little bit more conservative about going forward. So yeah, it's going to be the out of possession stuff that is going to make the differences. But as JJ says, when both of these teams have the ball, they'll be trying to get the ball to their key players in both instances.
And I could add as well, you mentioned Julian Alvarez there. Obviously, Argentina started the tournament with Lautaro Martinez. And if we flip it and talk offensively now, they were clearly Messi and Martinez could not play together. Whereas with someone like Alvarez, they know where the other person is going to be. And we saw this. I mean, this all came together against Croatia so brilliantly because there was telepathic understanding between the two of them. Alvarez, obviously 22 years old, just arrived at Man City from River Plate. We knew that he's a brilliant player, and obviously it's Man City reserve now who's going to be starting in the World Cup final. But so those two are very good together. I think McAllister, in addition to De Paul, is also very good at kind of backing up Messi. If Messi wanders off somewhere, McAllister will also be hovering around there. So I think for me, it's a tournament of revelations when it comes to Argentina, because you have McAllister, you have Alvarez, you have Enzo, who has, again, talking of a midfielder doing multiple jobs, I think Enzo is the guy. Whereas on the other hand, you have the France team. Okay, they had a bit of change. Of course, the base of midfield has changed, but it's essentially a very similar team to what was there 4 years ago. Whereas Argentina have had to reinvent themselves.
All right, you've got the team sheets right there, haven't you?
From 2018, yeah.
From 2018. What a match that was.
Oof.
Did it feature one of the greatest World Cup goals ever?
I think it features,
or maybe two,
maybe even three. I mean, I think the Mercado's little flick is hugely underrated.
Is that on the Messi shot? Was it?
It was a ball came across. This is for 2-1. Was it Messi or was it someone else?
Oh, this is before my time. This 2018. I can't remember.
So kind of he flicks it in with outside.
Look it up.
Not as old as you, James.
Right after you've watched
a brilliant Messi cross for the late Aguero header as well. I mean, a lot of great goals. And of course, we kind of look back on it, Argentina.
But the Pavard, did we say Pavard?
Yeah. I mean, we haven't got to Pavard yet. and then Mbappe showed the 2 goals in 5 minutes. But they will look back on that team, the São Paulo, Argentina, thinking, oh, they were a bit of a disaster, full of these old people and But that game, they went toe-to-toe with France. And so perhaps, maybe history is a bit harsh.
Hello there. If you've enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to this channel? The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.